Hello, hello, and hello. This is Helen Thomas and the CDFM study group. Welcome. So, the purpose of our session for today is for us to review CDFM Module 4. So, this is the optional module that you can take in addition to earning your certification with Module 1, 2, and 3. Then you also have an acquisition module that you can take to get the acquisition designation at the back of your CDFM certification. And so the acquisition in this module 4 is basically the third DoD support system. What are the three DoD support systems? JCITS, Joint Capabilities Integration and Development System. That's where they identify capability gaps. We know what we want to do in our strategy, but we have to look at our resources to see if we have everything that we need. And that analytical process is JCITS to determine what type of capabilities do we have and where the capability gap lies. The JROC, Joint Requirements Oversight Council, who is chaired by the Vice Chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, they serve as the warfighter. So they have representatives from all the chiefs of staff, the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So each of the services has a representative on the JROC. And so what they're looking for is identifying any Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine type of shortfalls that they have to meet the national defense strategy. And so, let's get the glasses. And so what they do is they look at MLPF, as we discussed, doctrine, organization, training, material, leader development, personnel, and facilities. And then they determine of all of those areas, which area does the capability need arise in. And so if it's anything other than material solution to fix the problem or fill the gap, it triggers the second system, plan, program, budget execution, or the PPBE system. The PPBE system, planning is the responsibility of the USD for policy, programming is the DCAPE. The DCAPE is also responsible for updating the future year defense program. Analysis of the alternative guidance. They provide cost information on development of the CARD, cost analysis requirements document for your milestone B major programs. And then you have budgeting, which is the USD comptroller, and the execution phase. And so if while doing the JCITS and in the initial capabilities document, it says that it requires a material solution, then the material solution triggers the third system, which is the Defense Acquisition System, CDFM Module 4. So that's how we get to the CDFM Module 4. All right. And so we're going to pick up today on page 422. 4.2.2, I am still using the 2011 study guide, as I have not noticed any new study guides for the ASMC. Once they come up with a new study guide, I'll purchase it to verify their the differences between the two. And so the topic for today in 4.2 is systems engineering. So we figured out what's going to fill the capability gap. It's a material solution. We got our baseline from last week, so we know where our starting points are. And now we're going to look at systems engineering. So you think of systems engineering, exactly what it says is you're looking from the process from when we identify the need to when we actually fill that need with a product, a system, an equipment. And so that's system engineering in a nutshell. That whole process that we go through from that initial capabilities document, the solution, picking an analysis of the alternative, picking a solution to moving to where we have an actual product. On page 423, actually, I'm looking at both my notes here. It talks about the systems engineering plan. So in systems engineering, and if you think about it, you don't have to think hard, is who's in charge of a program? Who's in charge of it? The program manager. So for this module 4, pretty much most of your answers are going to be program manager. If you don't know, pick program manager, because that's their job, to be the subject matter expert on these programs. And so they provide the analysis of the alternative, the baseline data, and for how much it'll cost to develop this system. So program manager comes up with the life cycle of the product. Once we pick an equipment, you come up with the end item, then you have to also have a plan to sustain the item. So that all of that is systems life cycle. So let's see what it says about systems engineering plan. When does the systems engineering plan occur? It occurs beginning at milestone A. So these are the important things you got to know for module 4. So a SEP is done at milestone A, and what does it support? When it's done at milestone A, it supports technology development. Okay, remember, what is it? Material solution analysis, milestone A, and the second phase is technology development or technology maturation risk reduction. And so the purpose of the SEP at milestone A is to support technology development, to reduce the technology risk. When you do a SEP at milestone B, it is supporting the acquisition strategy, because we know that the formal acquisition program begins at milestone B. And so anything that decisions we make at milestone B is supporting the acquisition strategy, exactly how we're going to acquire the system. So program manager in charge, program manager does a SEP at milestone A to support the technology development, and another SEP is done at milestone B, and it's done throughout, but when it's done at B, it's to support the acquisition strategy. All right, so you got a lot of technical reviews, leadership, modular open systems approach. Program managers must employ modular system to design affordability change. So just remember, when they're building things, you're going to see most of these definitions and words is they're not building it as it should only be that you can only use one channel, one process. You want it to be interchangeable with different things throughout the process. 425 talks about the item unique identification, basically like a serial number. So if you have an aircraft, they have a tail number on it. So that's basically what they're mentioning. Each item has a unique number associated with it. Electromagnetic spectrum supportability. If they need technology input, technological support, then you have to look at what type of system you're developing, what type of support, what type of impact that they'll have on the network. You know, if you're going to have to hook them up to the network. So electromagnetic spectrum. Right, let's look at my other notes. Most time we talk about that. Program manager should identify acquisition risk management. And let me see something before I say this. I'll read it after. All right. So we talked about in the previous modules, when we looked at, I think, module 2, cost and economic analysis, we went over decision points. When we went through the phases and the milestones, we went through decision point. So you will find that there are additional decision points. So in the previous ones, you learn about decision points, milestone A, B, C, and the full rate of production. Well, now in this particular part, and we're going to go over throughout, there are actually 7 decision points. So we already know 4. The additional ones you're going to learn is material development decision. So before every major event, there's a decision point. Post preliminary design. So after we did the initial design, we have a decision point. Does it look like what we want it to look like? Does it do what we want it to do? And post critical design review is another one. So milestone A, B, C, full rate production, material development decision, post preliminary design review, and post critical design review. And those will come up again. So I'm using my notes that I took when I took the 2-day class. That was very helpful. So I like to rewrite things because it helps me to remember. All right, so let's go to page 426. What are we talking about here? Integrated product and process development. So integrated, right? Intertwined. Again, we don't want no single point of failure in a process. So we try to integrate different aspects of what we're developing. So let's see what it says. The concept of IPPD and integrated product team shall be applied throughout the acquisition process. And let's see what it says. IPPD evolving industry as an overgrowth of efforts. We want to synchronize our various efforts. Give me a break. All right, what my notes say. IPPD facilitates meeting cost, schedule, performance objectives from the product throughout production, from concept through production. One of the key tenets is multidisciplinary teamwork. So we want to make sure we're synchronizing all the different efforts, because not only one office is going to be doing the work. You have several offices that's going to be working different parts of the process. So those teams all work together to integrate the product and the processes. So I'm trying to simplify the acquisition information so you can see it makes sense. Because if you're building an aircraft, it's not like one team is building the whole aircraft. You probably have several different integrated teams that do their individual parts, then they bring all the parts together to voila, make an aircraft. Let's see what it says. All acquisition categories on page 7, that's 427, excuse me. And so ACAT 1 Delta, that's a major defense program, and ACAT 1 AM, that's a major information automated system, a MAZE, major automated information system. Programs will have an OIPT. So all the DoD level programs, whether it's automation or general, they all will have an overarching integrated product team. So like overarching, and you have several integrated product teams under that particular one. The program manager, in collaboration with the action officer from the Office of OIPT, shall collaborate to form and co-lead an IIPT, integrated product team. So you have individual integrated product teams, then you have an, let me make sure I say it correctly, the overall integrated product team, and they all fall under an overarching integrated product team. So that's working level, IPTs, WIPTs, IIPTs, and the OIPT is the senior. Technical management process. All right, we discussed all of that. Systems engineering deals with planning system having capabilities. Okay. So stand by. Oh, here we go. I thought I passed it, but no, it is right here. Requirements, systems of systems, technical management. All right, so decision analysis 4.2.11. What did my notes say? Decision analysis provide the basis for evaluating the alternatives Decision analysis involves selecting the criteria. So that's when you're doing those courses of action and you have several choices. So I think at this point, we're developing the technology. So decision analysis, you'll have various objectives that has to be met and so forth. For example, during system design, analysis must be conducted to help choose between different alternatives to achieve a balanced, supportable, robust, and cost-effective system. That's decision analysis. Then they go over 4 to 11, technical planning, technical assessment. Some of this stuff is real straightforward, so I'm not going to waste time going over them. Requirements management provides traceability back to the user, because again, you don't want to just be developing the product without making sure it's meeting the needs. So every step of the process is tracing it back to that warfighter to make sure they actually use it. So the program manager institutes requirements management to maintain traceability of all requirements. We said these are all the objectives. As you move through the process, we need to have a checklist to say that we're meeting all the objectives, to document all the changes to those requirements, and to record the reason for the changes. Configuration management is as you're changing the configuration of that product, is making sure you're maintaining an audit trail of all the decisions. And this kind of makes sense, because if you're doing billions of dollars worth of acquisition, you better have paperwork to keep track of all the decisions being made throughout the process. Here we go, technical processes. Talk about decision, requirements, configuration. Now we're on technical processes. Let's see, you have stakeholder requirements. So don't forget your stakeholders, your warfighter, because that's who we're building that capability for. Architectural design, we're looking for alternative solutions. Implementation is a process that actually yields the lowest level system elements in the system's hierarchy. So the lowest amount that we need to act of elements that's necessary to develop that equipment. You need to, so all of these are just definitions, but I'm pointing out some of them that you need to be familiar with. So we have verification. So what you're doing throughout the process is verifying that the design meets that capability gap that we're trying to do. Does it meet all the objectives that was established in the beginning? Did you build the right thing? So when you build that first prototype, you have to verify that we built the right equipment to support that warfighter. So there's a difference between verification and validation. So you're verifying if the product we develop meet the objectives. Validating is validating, is it the right solution to fill that capability gap? Verification versus validation on page 4-15. Make sure you know the difference. That's what I was looking for. All right. Page 4-16. Still along the systems engineering sheets. So what that deals with planning, analyzing, organizing, integrating capabilities of a mix of existing and new systems into a system of systems having capability. What? So that just goes back to what I said earlier. We're trying to build a capability that's greater than what we already have in our inventory. So we put different pieces of the existing capabilities, or we might have to build something brand new. We put all these pieces together. The end result, what we expect is for us to have a better or more robust capability that is greater than what we had before we started. Systems of systems. Now, the difference between a system of systems and a family of systems is important in this. Trust me. All right. So systems of systems must be treated and managed as a system of their own right. One system. Contrast, a family of system is considered to be several pieces that work together. So a family of systems does not create a capability beyond the sum of the individual capabilities. So systems of systems mean that once I put all these parts together, I have a greater capability. If it's just a family of systems, it does not give me any greater capability than the individual sums of capability. What does that mean? I don't know, but that's how it's explained. I know it took me a minute when I was going through the class, but let me read my notes to make sure I said it correctly. All right. So system of systems have capabilities greater than the sum of the capabilities of the individual parts. If I put individual parts together, I build this aircraft. The capability of that aircraft is better than the aircraft that I had before, or the different parts individually. A family of systems does not create a capability beyond what each of the parts is able to do. So it's just a group of systems that have common characteristics. So systems of systems and family of systems. All right, that's enough of that. So in the acquisition process, it uses an evolutionary acquisition process. So we don't always have to start from research and development, then we procure. Maybe there's something already existing in the inventory. As we went when we went over the cost estimating methods, we said sometimes you have actual cost estimates because you already have something in the inventory. It's just a matter of tweaking it a little bit, so you're not starting from scratch. So programs with an evolutionary acquisition strategy undergo additional reviews. Milestone B for decision points. So depending, they do not always have to come in milestone A, B, C, and all of this. It may just come in straight to milestone B if you already had some in your inventory and you just need some more developed. Excuse me. Right, got that. Undergo additional review at milestone B. System. The system life cycle process. So who creates the system's life cycle plan? Program manager. When in doubt in acquisition, pick the program manager. At the let me see what it says. Material development decision review. Now, was that one of my 7? Material development decision. Yep. So that was one of the first new ones. So on page 4220, they're talking about one of our new decision points. At the material development decision review, the joint staff shall present the JROC recommendations and the DoD component shall present the initial capabilities document, including the preliminary concept. Okay, But what I want to get to is the Director of Program Analysis and Evaluation, or the DCAPE for the newer ones, shall propose study guidance of the alternative. So remember I said the DCAPE is in charge of providing analysis of the alternative guidance. That's where this ties into that. So in the material solution of the first phase of the acquisition, that's when you do the material solution analysis. We get the key supporting attributes, the key objectives, and we get the different analysis of the alternative. We got the different alternatives, and then the DCAPE provides analysis of the alternative, and then we try to figure out, okay, which ones meets the need, which one is the best response. So the milestone decision authority shall approve the analysis of the alternative. Mentioned 4221, MDA. We talked about that last week. Milestone decision authority. So that's the senior acquisition person for that program. If it's a DoD level program, it's the USD ANS. But for module 4, that same person's title in the module 4 will be Undersecretary of Defense, Acquisition Technology and Logistics, USD ATNL. In the newer study guides for module 1, 2, and 3, it's the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment. So bottom line, whichever one have acquisition in their name, they are the milestone decision authority for that level. So in the analysis of the alternative, once he approves our recommendation for the course of action that we think best meets the need, then we go to milestone A to make a decision, then it's published to move on to technology development, and milestone A. So you got to say it like a story and try to remember everything that happens at each stage. So milestone A is when they're going to make a decision to move on to technology development. Milestone A is also when what else happens at milestone A that we just studied? The program manager completes systems engineering plan, the SEP is created at milestone A. And what does it do? It supports the technology development strategy. On the bottom of page 21, so I got my little note here, says material solution analysis phase ends when the analysis of the alternative has been completed. Makes sense. So we can present it at milestone A. Material solution options for the capability need is identified in the approved ICD, initial capabilities document. So remember when the JROC was done, doing their analysis and they determined this material solution is going to fill the capability gap, they published it in an initial capabilities document. Hey, Joint Chiefs of Staff, as a whole, we agree that this is going to fix or fill the capability gap. And so then the joint staff have to come back, look at the data, and then they have to approve the ICD. And then have been recommended by the lead DoD component conducting the AOA and the phase-specific criteria for initial overview. So material solution analysis, all of that. Once you finalize the ICD, then that document goes to that milestone A decision point. Milestone decision authority, material solution analysis does not mean you have entered a formal acquisition program. Where do you initiate an acquisition program? The formal initiation happens at milestone B, as in Bravo. All right, so milestone A is finished, approved to go to technology development. So it's supporting the pre-systems acquisition or the technology development strategy. And so now you're at technology development. The purpose of this phase is to reduce technology risk, determining a mature and appropriate technology that's needed to support the development of that system. What happens also on page 4223 at the top is at milestone A, the MDA reviews the proposed material solution and the draft technology development strategy. The technology development phase begins when the MDA has approved the solution in milestone A and has documented the decision in an acquisition decision memorandum, the ADM. Moving along. At milestone A, the DoD component shall submit a cost estimate for the proposed solution identified in the analysis of the alternative. All right, so what's that called? What's that cost estimate called? It's called the acquisition program baseline. You got to be able to keep tying all that stuff together. So once they pick a solution, then the program manager have to then come back with some updated numbers to say, okay, this is the recommended solution, and this is the acquisition program baseline, the starting point of what we think is going to cost to develop, push the systems out to the field, and sustain the system over its life cycle all the way to disposal. The bottom of page 24, during technology development and succeeding acquisition phases, the program manager shall give small businesses the maximum physical opportunity to participate. So that's more like information than CCOPS. When does the material solution analysis phase end? Material solution analysis phase ends when the AOA, analysis of the alternative, has been completed and a material solution has been selected and recommended by the lead component. So at milestone A, our first decision point, the MDA will review all the data that they collected in the material solution analysis, and they will draft the technology development strategy. So the SEP in milestone A also supports the TDS. We move to EMD. When does technology development phase begins? When the milestone decision authority approves to move into that phase, and it's documented in the acquisition decision memorandum. So as you're moving along, continuously recap to ensure that you tie in all the information together. Page 4228 at the top, the next phase, the engineering, manufacturing, development phase, EMD phase. What's the purpose? The purpose of that phase is to develop an actual system or a capability to complete the full system integration, technology risk, material, all of that. We're going to develop all that together in the EMD phase. That initial LRIP, low rate initial production number, is identified of the smallest amount we're going to develop when we go to production. They identify that in milestone B, but prior to EMD phase. EMD begins at milestone B at the bottom of page 28, which is normally the initiation of a formal acquisition program. Now you see how many times I've said that and it's been in the book. So it must be important. And also, if you read through the paragraph that's highlighted on page 28, it mentions that the MDA shall approve the acquisition strategy and the acquisition program baseline. The MDA decision is documented in an acquisition decision memorandum, the ADM. So at milestone B is when they do the baseline. Once they do the material solution analysis, milestone A, and then technology to reduce cost, schedule, performance, and also to reduce technology risk. Once they have all that data, they move to milestone B, and then the acquisition program baseline for the selection that we picked will be presented also, and it must approve the ICD and approve the acquisition program baseline. Integrated system design, system manufacturing. Okay, let me flip. Now we're going to move on with some more on the EMD process. When EMD begins, the formal initiation of a program, milestone B, production and deployment. So let's see. On page 31, number 5, that also mentions actually, let's go to number 3. mentions the acquisition program baseline. We talked about that. Number 4 talks about, so we take that initial capabilities document and now we develop a capabilities development document. So in the first part, we don't know exactly which solution is going to fix the problem, or which equipment, which aircraft, which vehicle, so forth, system. And so in the initial capabilities document, we finalize that to get us started. But once you get through engineering and manufacturing and you're actually focusing on one area and one solution, can you pick a solution, then you can move on from that initial capability document to a capabilities development. So we pick that capability. Now we need to develop that capability to see eventually, does it fill the capability gap? So you have the CDD, number 4. Number 5 talks about the LRIP. So in in milestone B, we want to also, because now we have one solution to the problem, capabilities development document, and also you identify the quantity, the smallest quantity of that equipment that we're going to develop initially. So the LRIP. So we're going to do the developmental O, T, and E. That's those overarching test and evaluation, operational test and evaluation, live fire test. So that's what those acronym means. So if you don't know, you got to go back. So in number 5 on page 31, and so you have to engross yourself in the information enough times so it doesn't sound foreign to you. So I'm trying to simplify as much as I can. So the LRIP is the quantity. Then as you're developing that those initial equipment, you have a developmental test and evaluation group, right? That's operational test and evaluation, that initial. And then later on, if it's live fire for those that require live fire, you'll do those tests and evaluation. Well, understand that test and evaluation begins at milestone B. Let's see. Yep. The bottom of page 31, number 7, milestone B, the program manager prepares the MDA approved an acquisition strategy. So you hear a lot of things going on at milestone B because that's their formal program. So I also said when the SEP is done, so you have the SEP, sustainable plan. When that SEP is done on milestone B, it's supporting the acquisition strategy. So the acquisition strategy is also prepared at milestone B. Production and deployment begins on page 4234. The purpose of this phase is to achieve operational capability that satisfies our mission needs. So milestone C will authorize entrance into the LRIP. So after we finish production and deployment, we will have developed the first quantity that we established back in milestone B. So the purpose, we got on 434 and then page okay. So the LRIP is developed at that point. Then we move to full rate production and deployment. Before they move to full rate, know that they had a decision point. approval by the milestone decision authority necessary to continue to the full rate of production. So that's on page 36. And I got a couple of things at the top of page 37. Number 2, you attain initial operational capability at that point. So full rate of production. As technology, software, and threats change, follow-on operational test and evaluation is completed. So test and evaluation is completed throughout the programs. And I think starting at milestone B. Military equipment valuation. The PM prepares a program description as part of the acquisition strategy. So it does another one, program description. PM does a program description. DoD components are updated quarterly throughout their life cycle. And the final phase is operations and support on page 38. The purpose of that, excuse me, is to execute support program and sustain system in a cost-effective manner. If they ask which one is the most expensive phase, operation and support, documented in the life cycle support plan. On page 39 at the bottom, disposal from cradle, beginning of the identifying the need to disposal of that equipment. So under Title 42, U.S. Code discusses disposal. At the end of its useful life cycle, a system shall be demilitarized and disposed. What does demilitarize mean? Is whatever key military capability or attribute that equipment has will be removed, and then they dispose of it based on the disposal plan and make sure they follow all legal and regulatory requirements. So that's Title 42, U.S. Code. All right, what was Title 41? Let's see if anybody remembers. Feed and Forage Act, right? Title 41, U.S. Code. But Title 42, U.S. Code deals with disposal. All right, what's the note say? Disposal, end of the life cycle, demilitarize, dispose, Title 42. So decision points, full rate of deployments, material development, post, okay, yep. All right, so page 43, 4243, still on systems engineering. In the acquisition program, they typically use an open system process, uses widely supported and consensus-based standards for its key interfaces. All right. Open system design. The open system design should be implemented as part of the program's technical approach and must become an integral part of the systems engineering plan, the SEP. So the program manager must consider open system, because you don't want something that only one entity can use. If you can be universal, then so be it. So that approach has to be taken. Page 45, commercial off the shelf. So if we can get COTS or the opportunity to get something that's already on the shelf, already out there, then we utilize commercial off the shelf items. So use of commercial items offers significant opportunities for reduced development. That means it won't take me as long to develop the item to get it out to the warfighter, because I have some technological advances that's already in the commercial sector that I can tap into, I can buy, I can contract out to be able to utilize that. So the design consideration must be open system design, use commercial off-the-shelf products if possible. Those are some of the considerations that we must have. Manufacturing quality control. Important design considerations on page 47. Whenever we're designing a product, we need to look at the RAM. Reliability, that means it's going to work without any major failures. Availability, is it available? What's its readiness? Is it available quickly? What about maintainability? Is it easy to maintain that equipment? So RAM, the program manager should establish the RAM objectives. 21 considerations, I think they go into them later on, and we'll touch on a few of them. But reliability, availability, and maintainability, that's RAM, must be considered. So, and what those are such things as, for starting on page 48, supportability. Can we get, if we need an agency to support, do we have a lot of support? Human systems integration, how do we integrate the human factor in that equipment? Are they going to be safe? Is it easy to learn how to operate that equipment? Environmental, what are environmental, safety, and occupational health concerns? I think later on it goes into these more deeper. Survivability, if an IED hits that equipment, what is the survivability rate for our warfighters? So how well does that equipment test in the battlefield? So all of those things got to be considered. Page 50, corrosion prevention and control. We don't want it to get rusty. How do we make sure that doesn't happen? Disposal and demilitarization. Doing systems engineering, as they're developing the total life cycle of that system, they must consider how do you get rid of the equipment once it's no longer supported and no longer useful to the warfighter. Information assurance. If you have technology, operating systems in these equipment. So program manager got to incorporate information assurance. Munitions, if these equipment are going to be able to shoot. Anti-tamper provisions, meaning we don't want somebody to be able to tamper with the key features of that equipment. So that must be considered. And most of all, security of the equipment. If this equipment gets in the hands of our enemies, is system provided? Or if, let's say, a person doesn't have the right pass or need to know right accesses, would they be able to operate this equipment to the standards? So important design considerations continued on page 53. So some of these I'm just pointing them out to you. Research and technology protection. If they got technology, we got to be able to protect it. Accessibility, ensure that the electronic and the information is easily accessible to those who need it and complies with all the regulation. The item has a unique identifying number on page 54. Critical safety items that's going to stop that equipment from working or be destructive to the warfighter. So all of those are key considerations that the program manager has to make. On page 55, it begins systems engineering tools. So it goes more in depth now on the SEP. But again, systems engineering plan was mentioned earlier. It's a detailed explanation of how you go from a need to an actual system. So the program manager have to prepare the initial SEP at milestone A. And at milestone A, it supports the technology development phase. When it's done at milestone B, it's supporting the acquisition strategy. The term value engineering on the bottom of page 56 means an analysis of the functions, program, project, system, product, line of equipment, building, facility, service, or supply of an executive agency performed by a qualified agency directed at improving performance. So all of those costs. Page 57, Continuing with tools, techniques, and resources. Modeling and simulation, that's important to you because modeling and simulation is where you actually put the equipment, a simulated battlefield, let's put it that way, of that equipment. So it's a tool that's used to support a collaborative process to exchange data. So all the key individuals can come together and they can make sure that this equipment actually provides the resulting capability. At the top of page 58, it's important to know that modeling and simulation is done throughout the entire, starting at milestone A is done throughout, because you consistently, as you develop something and you think you have a capability, you want to make sure that it's still meeting that total systems engineering plan. So it's modeling and simulation is done throughout the program. All right, so some of the key aspects of that 21 technical things that the program manager have to consider, I point out again, open system design. Is it reliable? That means you can perform it without failure. The RAM availability, maintainability, ease and efficiency. Supportability is cost effective. We can pay for it. It has that unique identifying number or serial number for that particular equipment. Value engineering is analysis of the function of the program project and all the different aspects of it, and using commercial off-the-shelf items to reduce the developmental time that it will take to develop a new system. So the thing with the commercial off-the-shelf product is they do not need any unique government modification to opt for them to be functional on our side. So we take it from the commercial side, but they do not require any major government modification to be able to use them. Okay. All right. So I think that's it for module 4.2. So all of that is systems engineering. So we are moving along the process. As we go through the systems, we identify material solution analysis, then we move into material solution analysis, analysis of the alternative. We pick one of the alternative. We present it in milestone A. Milestone A, the program manager does the SEP, the plan, the strategy for the technology development strategy. And then we move to technology to reduce the risk. So material solution analysis, consider reducing risk for cost, schedule, and performance. Technology development or technology maturation or risk reduction is to reduce technology risk. Then all of that data is then presented at milestone B, where the milestone decision authority can decide to move into that formal acquisition program. And we went over all the considerations that program manager has to consider as they develop all these documents. The acquisition program baseline is also done at milestone B. What's the other one? Modeling and simulation is done throughout the whole acquisition life cycle of that product. Okay, so I think I've went over all the key areas for this section. Again, this is CDFM Module 4, Competency 2, Systems and Engineering. All right. So if you have not already subscribed to our YouTube page, please go ahead and do so, please. Consider just clicking like, click share, type a comment. If I said something and you don't understand, type a comment, let me know so I can clarify, because that means someone else may also have the same question and just fail to ask the question. And also, if you have something that's not covered and you have questions about it, right, leave me a comment on that particular video so that I know to go back and try to clarify that particular information or cover the topic that I may have skipped. Because again, as a study group, I'm not going to go through page by page with you, because that's something you have to do on your own. I am just pointing out some key areas that people tend to miss in understanding the process. And this is your approach to the CDFM. This particular module 4 is direct compared to the first 1, 2, and 3. This one is more direct, but you still have to understand that acquisition strategy, starting from the initial capabilities document that's done by the JROC and the Vice Chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, all the way to material solution analysis, milestone A, technology development, milestone B, engineering, manufacturing, production, milestone C, production, what else? Operations and support, all the way to disposal. All right, so thank you. Again, this is Helen Thomas and the CDFM study group. I'll see you guys again next time.